Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gives in the Bank Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm Marc Givler, joined as always by Bill Greene. It's our day 2 of the Scoop100 release, our top 100 prospects in the class of 2022 that we're releasing on the site. We're going to hopefully get an episode in each day this week, counting down 10 more prospects, and we may run through the weekend as well. I know we're going to try and kind of hammer these out this week and get close to the end here. Where we left off last time, we did our first 10. So we counted from 100 to 91. So this episode here on Monday, April 26th, we're going to be looking at prospects 90 through 81 in the country. And again, these are all 4-star prospects. All should be considered high 4-star guys. For the rankings, we're going to update the list on the website there. If you go to BuckeyeScoop.com, on the left, there's a rankings tab, Scoop100. Every time we drop an episode, we're going to update that list until eventually, obviously, we get to number 1. So we'll update that list so you can kind of track that. I'll put a link in the description box if you're watching on YouTube, so you can kind of follow along with the list if that's easier for you. But let's dive right into it. Number 90. This is a guy I had to do a lot of research on. I'm not super familiar with him. I have not seen him in person. I had to watch some film and do a little research here and ask some people that might know more about him. But it's Jalil Tucker out of San Diego, California, out of Lincoln High School. 6-foot athlete. What struck me about him is he's a big time track guy. I guess he's a sub 1100 meter guy. He's like a 22. He's in the 22s and the 200. So I'm a sucker for 6-foot, 6-foot corner defense back types that can run. I mean, I personally like a guy like that on defense. But Bill, any thoughts on him? You get a chance to, I know probably a guy you weren't super familiar with either. Probably do some research there. What do you think of him?
Yeah, I like him. And it seems like he's the kind of guy that probably since you and I have known each other and talked about kids when we were at competing companies, now work in the same place, we always see these kids and we always want them on defense. You know what I mean? We've gone through kids like this for the last 10, 12 years since I've known you. He's an athlete. He can definitely catch the ball, but when I look at him, it's like, should he be playing corner? Like, I think he should. You know, to me, is he Lorenzo Styles? You know, is he a kid that really wants to play offense, but probably should be playing defense, which is how I see Lorenzo, even though I think Lorenzo is going to be a fine wideout, for Notre Dame. But I think as a corner, Lorenzo Styles can be an NFL guy here. So that's how I see Tucker. And you and I have talked about kids like this for 10 years. They all want to catch the ball. They all want to play offense. I went through this with Gary and Conley. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, on and on. So I think he's a corner, and I think he's a big-time corner if he'll commit to that position and play it.
Yep. And not a guy that Ohio State's really involved with. That's a Pac-12 battle. He's going to stay out west somewhere,
right.
Arizona State, Oregon, USC, looking like a Pac-12 battle there. So no real Ohio State interest there. Unlike the next guy, and our next guy is interesting. Number 89 here on our list. He is. I'm going to use the word polarizing, and that's probably a more negative term than I want to use because I think polarizing implicates like he's got a personality issue or something. It's not that, but he is a guy who there are so many differing opinions on. I'll kind of just put it that way. And that is linebacker Sean Murphy out of Virginia. There are people who continue to rate him a 5-star. I think he's a 5-star on Rivals. I think at one point he was in the top 5 players in the country.
Yes.
He's fallen way down on other people's lists. We're kind of splitting the difference here. We've got him at 89 in the country. That's awfully high. It's Ohio State is still recruiting him. Bill, I'll let you go first on this one because we both saw him at the same camp and we're a little concerned, I guess, about some things we saw. But what are your thoughts on him today?
Yeah.
Now, we're about 10 months removed from that camp now. Your thoughts on Sean Murphy today?
Yeah, I mean, I probably kind of led the charge on he's way overrated. And when he was listed at number 5 in the country, he was way overrated. He's not a 5-star top 5 player in America. But now that you start looking at him in the 90 range, Okay, and that's still one heck of a player. If you're ranked 89 in America, you are a player, and he is. But just like everyone thinks that I'm so down on the kid, I'm not down on him. He can play. The film speaks for itself. Not the most athletic guy in the world, not the fastest guy in the world, but a pure football player. So just when people were trying to tell me he was a 5-star and the number 6, 5, 7 player in America, it was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. So now that you're got him backed up, rated where I think he should be, I like him. I like him a lot. Is he Tough Borland? And people laugh at that, but Tough Borland was a 4-star kid, started how many games at Ohio State? 50 games at Ohio State. So, Sean Murphy seek and destroy Mike linebacker, and now that we're seeing him rated here as a 4-star kid, number 89 in America, I like him. And I think he's rated where he should be, which is a darn good football player.
Yeah, I think he's kind of for me anyway, a little bit of a victim of expectations. When you've never seen someone before and you see they're like ranked in the top 5 or 10 in the country, you are expecting to just be blown away. I mean, you're expecting a guy that you see, I always think of guys like a Reuben Foster when he was coming out. The first time I saw Reuben Foster when he was in high school, I was like, oh my God, that guy could start just about anywhere in the country as a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Right.
And so that's the baseline when you're talking about a linebacker ranked in the top 5 players in the country. You are expecting special. You're expecting Justin Flo. You're expecting something just outrageous. And so I think that set the expectations a little bit too high. Reminds me a little bit of Taraja Mitchell, honestly. I know Mitchell was a 5-star with some people. I never thought he was quite that. I thought he was a little bit limited. Had to be a Mike. That position's kind of going away a little bit. It's more of a situational position now than anything. You got to be able to cover a little bit better now. So it reminds me of Taraja a little bit, and Taraja's probably gonna end up being a pretty good player for Ohio State. He may start this year. So I think expectations were just a little bit too high there. And I like where we have him now, and we'll just kind of continue to evaluate from there and hopefully get a chance to see him again here in the fall and decide what to do from here. But again, Ohio State's still recruiting him. Could end up in the class. I guess while we're talking about him, Dasan McCullough just decommitted. I've made the case that I don't know that should really impact Sean Murphy. I don't know that, if since McCullough's out now, Murphy has to automatically be in. I think that's almost a decision made independent of each other, because I don't know that Murphy and McCullough are very similar players. But I mean, do you see that differently, Bill? I mean, do you think Sean Murphy's chances go up with Dasan McCullough out of the class, or do you kind of view it like I do, where it's like, they're not really the same player anyway, so I don't know why they would really impact each other?
Yeah, they're not remotely similar at all. And I'm not sure McCullough was a linebacker at Ohio State anyway. I don't know. And if he was certainly on the outside, and Murphy's a Mike. So I don't think it really impacts Sean Murphy, other than it maybe moves him up one in the grand scheme of thing. If they have an overall board, he comes up one. But in terms of replacing Dasan McCullough, I don't see that at all. They're different, totally different.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've looked at it. But I know that's going to be the first inclination, is everyone's going to kind of want to jump to him as like kind of the next guy in. And I don't know that it's that simple. But all right, moving on. 88 cornerback Traquan Fagans, Oxford, Alabama. Again, we just talked about Jalil Tucker. Good size, can run. A lot of SEC schools here after him. Ohio State not involved in this one, but your thoughts on Fagans?
Yeah, I liked him. I don't know about the pure speed. I'd like to see some track times on him, but he's long, and he looks like a guy who can flip his hips. He's athletic. When you look at a kid from Bama, I think he has a Bama offer listed on his profile. I wonder if that's, how do you do offer? I don't know that they would push to take him. He doesn't have them listed as one of his top schools. So that tells me that they don't see him as one of their top players. So nice player though. I mean, would I take him? Heck yes. I mean, is he, a little bit more athletic than Ryan Watts? It kind of reminded me of that. So, but I like him. I like him a lot. He's going to play somewhere, and I think he's got a chance to be really good.
Yep. Just again, we'll get more into this, I think, later on in the list, but as I put this together, I have really been impressed by the cornerbacks in this class nationally. I mean, this has to be an unbelievable year for defensive backs. If you're looking for corners, I mean, my goodness, I mean, they're just throughout our top 100. Again, we're going to get into more of these guys later, but it's just a theme here. Every segment I was going through, I'm like, boy, got a few corners here, and it's just been a common theme. It's a really strong corner year. Another interesting player here, number 87, Kobe Mckenzie, linebacker out of Lubbock, Texas, Cooper High School, I believe was committed to Texas Tech at one point, and flipped to Oklahoma. Oklahoma now holds his commitment. Lubbock is not exactly the hotbed that some other areas of Texas are, but really good player, super athletic. Looks like he checks a lot of the boxes from a measurable standpoint. Bill, your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's another run and hit backer. I think he's an inside guy. I like him a lot. Is he Sean Murphy type? Probably. They're probably very similar. This kid, like I say, I don't think he can play on the outside. I don't know. What did you think of him? I thought he was an inside guy.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of it's one of those things. I mean, I agree. I think he's an inside guy because if you have to ask, he is. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. If you have to ask yourself if they can play outside, then he probably shouldn't play outside. You know what I mean? Yeah. It should be kind of stone cold obvious. And then that way, if you keep him inside, you've got a plus athlete inside versus, a guy who may be an average athlete. So if you have to ask, it's kind of a corner safety question to me. If you have to ask if he's a corner, then he's probably a safety. It's kind of the same thing, but I would agree. Yep. But that's probably Oklahoma could use a little toughness on defense. So that's probably a really good fit there.
I agree.
Yeah. Next guy here, 86, Derrick Moore, defensive end out of Baltimore, St. Francis. This kid's been tied to Ohio State a little bit. I think that's probably not accurate. I don't think he's going to end up at Ohio State. I actually had someone kind of on the Oklahoma side of this one reach out to me a few weeks ago about this, and tell me that Oklahoma might be convinced that he's going to Ohio State. I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I think he's actually going to Oklahoma. But it's an interesting situation. Ohio State has had some contact there at various points. I don't know that there's been a lot of contact lately. I think they've kind of turned attention to some other guys who, a couple of whom we will talk about later on in this list. But Derrick Moore's a heck of a player. An area that produces a lot of defensive ends out there, the DMV area out there in Maryland. I think he's a really balanced player. I think he can rush the passer, but he's also got some size to him. He's not a guy that's going to have to, put on 50 pounds when you get him to campus. I think he plays pretty strong. Great program at St. Francis. My gosh, have they turned out talent lately? So he's a guy I like quite a bit. Bill, what do you think about Moore?
Yeah, edge rusher. I like him. I don't really love him. I thought the size was kind of an odd sized kid. I don't know if he was as long as what I would like, but I mean, he's really productive. How the heck the kid from Baltimore ends up, committed to Oklahoma is kind of beyond me. You don't really see that too often. So, but I think he's a good get for them. When I take him at Ohio State, I probably would. I think he'd play for Ohio State, play for anyone. So I liked him. I just, like I say, for those defensive ends, like those edge guys, I like those longer, leaner, first step gone type guys. And he really wasn't that kind of player, but he's productive as heck. He's hard to block, and he'll probably have a heck of a college career for the Sooners.
Yeah, like he's more Tyler Friday than Zach Harrison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's probably why, we're talking about him in the 80s versus talking about him in the 20s or 30s. Is kind of, it's not a prototype length, height type situation. You don't have that huge, wingspan like with Zach Harrison or, Chase Young or someone like that. So that's probably keeping him from being a little bit higher, but super productive player, very heavily recruited. Again, I think it's pretty much an Oklahoma situation at this point, but we'll see. Next guy, this little interesting player here, a guy Ohio State kicked the tires on a couple different times, actually, I think throughout the past maybe 2 years or so, but nothing ever really went too far there. That's safety Brian Allen Jr. Out of Aledo, Texas. He is committed to Texas. Big get there for Sark. You know, again, a guy Ohio State I think really liked. They were kind of on the fringe there. I don't think they ever got a lot of traction. They never, obviously, maybe one of those deals where COVID kind of stepped into play here and kind of prevented a visit from happening here over the past 18 months or whatever it's been now. But really good player there for Texas. Again, kind of what I would be looking for, I guess, in a more modern safety, can cover a little bit, can run. But physical enough to not be a liability and run support. Bill, your thoughts on Brian Allen?
Yeah, I liked him a lot. A little bit undersized, but that'll change, as he matures into his body. I mean, I like those safeties in this game. You got to be able to cover. The Mike Doss safety days are gone. This kid looked like a kid that I thought he would fit at Ohio State in that single high. I thought he could play it. He's definitely a guy that, he's strong in run support. He can cover. You never have to take him off the field. So I don't care if you're playing Wisconsin or if you're playing Oregon, this kid, he doesn't come off the field. So I liked him a lot. The speed, I didn't really see a track time on him. He looks pretty fast to me on film, and he definitely will stick his nose in there and tackle. So he was a guy that I thought would have really fit, for Ohio State. If he was interested in Ohio State, I thought he would have been really good for the defense that Ohio State wants to play.
Yeah, that was a big pickup for Texas. Obviously, they're trying to, stop the bleeding. The past couple of years, they've really taken some beatings in state with some key losses. So that was a big one for them. We got 4 guys left that we're going to talk about here, and a couple of them are really big names for Ohio State fans. So you're going to want to stick around here for these next few guys. Coming in at number 84, we have wide receiver Kojo Antwe out of Lambert High School, Atlanta area. One of maybe the top 2 remaining receiver prospects for Ohio State, along with CJ Williams at this point. I mean, certainly one of the top of the board guys that's left out there. Is supposed to visit in June, supposed to make an official visit. Had an announcement date, I believe, for this month. I think it was supposed to be April. Right. He had a spring announcement date that he postponed, which was very good news for Ohio State, because that kind of started to go off the rails a little bit, and it's been stabilized, I think, a little bit now that he's going to take some more time. First of all, what do you like about Kojo? And then we can maybe talk a little bit about the Ohio State situation, but your thoughts on Kojo.
Yeah, I like everything about him. I like a lot. He's a hands catcher. Can run after the catch, the speed, he runs away from people on film. I mean, he's really athletic. He jumps over people and makes catches, high points the ball. I mean, I like everything about him. I take him right now. I would take him at Alabama. He reminded me of an Alabama receiver, what they've had lately. So yeah, I would be really, really high on him. And I think, got a little bit of information there that, Ohio State loves him. And he could call right now and commit, and they would take him without question. So, and I don't think that one's done either. I'm not calling him to Ohio State. I think they have a really, really good shot at getting that kid. And I would pull out all the stops to get that kid. I love Antwe. I mean, I think he's, he might be low here where we have him in the 80s. He may be a lot better than that. I'd like to see more of him. I'd love to see him in person. The film just leaked out at me. So I would be very high on this guy. And I think he's a guy that Ohio State fans need to track, because he could end up in this class. And if he ends up in this class, he can play. He fits with Garrett Wilson and Olave and Smith and all them guys. He fits with those guys real easy.
And I think he's got some pretty good size to him. I think, again, I'd like to see him up close in person, which I actually may do here in the next month or so. But it looks like the body type that could fill out and become kind of a really tough matchup, even for, we've talked about, his run after the catch and his athleticism, but he could be one of those like 215-pound receivers. That's just a kind of a handful. I mean, he looks like he's got the body type to fill out. Ohio, certainly Ohio State loves him. Right now, today, would I take Ohio State or the field? And they're in his top 3. I would probably take the field if I had to, but I'm feeling better about him. I'm feeling better about Ohio State's chances today than I was, a few weeks ago. I think they've regained some traction, and now I think this visit in June is going to be serious. I think that's something to really pay attention to. All right, next guy up, we got a tight end, Oscar Delp, out of another Georgia guy, out of West Forsyth High School. Not a player that Ohio State is involved with. Obviously, they've got 2 tight ends committed right now, so they're not in the market. But what have you seen out of Oscar? I think he was a guy you kind of pushed for to get into this range. What do you see out of him?
I liked him a lot. I mean, I think he was a little bit more athletic, a little bit more polished than Luke Lachey, Joe Royer, and I like both of those kids. But this guy, I think, is a lot better. I mean, he's a pass catching tight end. I think he's going to end up at Georgia, and I think that's a great fit for him. I mean, he looks like a Georgia tight end to me. I know Michigan thinks they're in it. I can't believe he's going to choose Michigan over Georgia, but we'll see. But I liked him as just an athletic, down the seam, hands catcher, catch the ball, catch everything. So pretty high on this kid.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the top guys. It's kind of funny. We just saw one of the best tight end classes we may ever see with that group of freshmen this year, like Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, Eric Gilbert, those guys. And so I don't think we're seeing quite that in this class. I think there's a lot of good players and there's not a lot of elite ones. So, not to give the rest of the list away, but this is actually pretty high on the tight ends list here. We've got him very high among the tight ends. There's not 15 more tight ends coming on this list. There's only a couple left, I think. So we've got him very high in the tight ends. Again, like you said, an excellent pass catcher. And it looks like is it Georgia versus Michigan? It seems like it is kind of like those two, which would lead you to believe it's going to be Georgia, but just because of where he, part of the country he's from, in-state kid there. So, but that'll be one to watch here in the coming months. See what he decides to do. All right, another big Ohio State prospect here at number 82. It is Governor Mifflin High School in Pennsylvania, running back Nick Singleton. I have seen Nick in person. I am a pretty big fan of his game. I think he might not be a 4-3 guy. He's more of a one-cut guy, but man, he's powerful. He's built low to the ground. He does run away from people. I'm very familiar with the area. He actually he lives about 20 minutes away from where I grew up, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. Definitely not always great competition regular season, but he's led his team to some deep playoff runs here recently. I believe they got to the state semifinals this year. So they've played top teams. He's burned all of them. He's been like a 10+ yards per carry guy. I went to a game. I watched him. We have some exclusive video of him from the past season. And he got dropped for a loss on his first touch. And then he scored on his next 4 touches. So he got dropped for a loss on his first touch of the game and then was never tackled the rest of the game because he touched the ball 4 more times, scored on all those plays. The game was like, 42-0 or whatever. The game got out of hand and he never carried the ball again. So it was kind of funny, but so I kind of pushed for this one, but just, Bill, your thoughts on Singleton from what you've been able to see on film.
Yeah, I've never seen him in person. And what I see on film was like a high school J.K. Dobbins his last year at Ohio State. Just a one-cut slasher, stick that foot in the ground and power through that hole. Again, I don't look at him as a 4-4 guy, but he is a producer. He's a yards churner. You know, would I take him at Ohio State? I'd take him right now at Ohio State. I think he would fit really well what Ryan Day wants to do. Like I said, I could see him being, a J.K. Dobbins, at Ohio State. So I think he's going to Penn State. I think they're in great shape for him. I think they're going to get him. And I think he's going to be a heck of a player. I like Nick Singleton just as much as you do. Yeah, very high on this guy.
Yeah, June visits will be interesting. Notre Dame's in there. Certainly, to me, this has been a Penn State Ohio State battle for probably more than a year now. I do I love where Ohio State stands now versus maybe a year ago? I don't know, probably not. I think the one thing Penn State has working right now for sure is that he is closer to that group. We talked about it a lot last year. Penn State got hammered in state last year recruiting. They didn't get anybody in Pennsylvania last year. Yeah. They lost guys all over the country, and they really have rebounded so far. They've got a few guys left. They're still trying to lock up, and of course, Singleton's one of them. But they've got a lot of in-state guys committed, guys that Singleton's comfortable with, knows pretty well, a couple guys from his area, actually. So that's working in their favor right now. He's got a late June visit to Ohio State. That's going to be huge. I think it's going to be one of those two. Can you count out Notre Dame or Wisconsin? I don't think you ever throw those two out, especially for a running back. So you're going to see those two mentioned a lot. He's going to visit those two places, but I think it's going to come down to Penn State and Ohio State. I'm not as on the Penn State train maybe as Bill is, but I think maybe I would give them a slight edge going into the visits and just kind of see how those visits go. One interesting note there is Ryan Day has been very involved with Nick. Ryan actually went to the high school and offered him personally I believe it was January, back when he could still go out on the road. So that's one that Ryan Day's been personally involved with, and I think that's made some impression here. So I give them a puncher's chance coming out of that visit in June, assuming everything goes well, or the visit's made and everything goes as scheduled. But yep, definitely a top guy for Ohio State's recruiting board. This is not an Ohio State guy, but is one that has, I think there's some storyline, there's some interest, there's some intrigue there from the Ohio State end of things, just how his recruiting process has played out. It's our last guy here on this list, number 81. It's California quarterback Malik Murphy. And much like, and maybe for different reasons, but much like Sean Murphy, there are a variety of opinions on Malik Murphy. There are people who will tell you he is an absolute slam dunk 5-star. There are people who will tell you he probably shouldn't have been on our list because he hasn't played enough varsity football to this point, and that there's not enough body of work there to be so high on him as so many people are. So we've again kind of split the difference here, I think, a little bit on the thought process on Malik Murphy. But definitely a kid with great size and a great arm. I mean, so it's a great starting point. Bill, your thoughts on Murphy and kind of, are we in the range? Should we be on the 5-star train here, or kind of what do you think?
Yeah, I think as a guy, you wait and see and get a little bit more information on him, a little bit more film on him. I mean, he's 6'5" and like 220. And I mean, he actually looks like he's really accurate as a thrower. I liked, like, the ball came out on time and it was accurate. The film I saw, I mean, this is a boom or bust guy all the way. Is he Cam Newton, where he should be in the top 10 in America? Or is he Cardale Jones and he's, we got him way too high? I don't know. I mean, he's interesting for sure. When you see that size and that athletic ability and that arm, and I mean, there's a lot there to like. So I don't know. We've seen guys like this, and I don't know who he is. If he's Cam Newton, then we're way too low on him. And if he's Cardale Jones, then we're way too high on him. And that's who he looks like on film. He looks like those two guys as a high school player. So, like I say, he could be a guy that we've got him here, in pencil, and he could drop like a rock or he could move way up. So he's kind of a personal favorite of mine. I kind of really want to track him and see what he looks like this year.
Yeah, there's some guys we've ranked where I'm like, and I would even say like Nick Singleton's probably one of those guys. Like we just ranked Nick Singleton, and you always want to keep an open mind, but the odds that Nick Singleton's going to go from 80 to 10 or from 80 to like 200 I think Nick Singleton's probably going to be in the ballpark of where he's at throughout the next, however many months until we wrap this up in like February.
Yeah.
This one's different. This could go just about any direction. And really, this could go into the top 10. I mean, it's bizarre. I talked to someone out in California about Malik not too long ago, and they think he's amazing. I mean, they're like, oh my God, he's unbelievable. He's 6'5",
Right.
he's got a huge arm, he's accurate, he's smart, he's a good kid. I talked to a college coach. I'm like, I don't know why these recruiting sites have him ranked at this point. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't shown us anything. We have no idea how good he is. So the opinions out there on Malik Murphy are kind of insane. It just totally stark contrast of each other. So he's one of the hardest guys, I think, to rank. But the tie to Ohio State here was Ohio State was kicking the tires on him for a really long time, and obviously wanted to see him throw in person at some point. And then he was like the fallback for Quinn Ewers. And then obviously they flipped Quinn Ewers back,
Right.
or they flipped Quinn Ewers from Texas. And now Texas goes and locks up Malik Murphy. So that was a very interesting couple months there where it looked like Ohio State was like going to maybe start pushing for Malik Murphy, but kind of wanted to see him throw. And then it's like, oh no, actually they're going to flip Ewers from Texas. And then Sarkisian takes the Texas job and immediately goes to work on Malik Murphy once it was pretty clear Quinn Ewers wasn't interested. So that's always going to be a storyline, I think, for the next 4 or 5 years, is watching Malik Murphy at Texas and Quinn Ewers at Ohio State. And ultimately, the rankings are going to say that Quinn Ewers is going to be the best quarterback in this class, probably, but that doesn't always play out that way. So the next 4 or 5 years, I guess, will be very fascinating to see who got the better end of that deal, because in an alternate universe, it's not totally out of the question that Quinn Ewers could have ended up at Texas and Malik Murphy could have ended up at Ohio State. Like, that's not a crazy scenario. That was actually possible at one point. So that's going to be very cool to watch, I think, the next few years, see how those two guys, shake out here. Bill, any final thoughts here on this group, or just the rankings here in general? Any observations from putting these 10 together, or is there a guy here maybe that's a favorite of yours that we talked about, or just kind of wrap this up here with your thoughts on this episode here?
Yeah, I think Malik Murphy, like I say, I could see him as the number 1 pick in the draft in 4 years, or I could see him, moving to tight end and, finishing his career at UCLA out of the transfer portal too. So I don't know. That's kind of the guy. I love those kind of things, just to see where is that kid going to end up, because the range on him is gigantic. He could be anything. So Malik Murphy's the one that, kind of caught my eye, just because of the physical skills and the raw ability he has.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it was funny. You talk to a guy in California who raves about him. You talk to a college coach who thinks the recruiting sites, and us included, are being irresponsible for ranking him so high. So it's just like two totally different opinions on him. So it's funny, but definitely be interested to see how that one shakes out. We will be, like I said, we'll be trying to run one of these every day this week. So we will be running 80 through 71 probably here on Tuesday. That's, again, we're going to have a bunch of committed players in this next 10. We've had a lot of uncommitted guys so far. These next 10, I think 8 of them are committed somewhere. There is going to be some Ohio State intrigue, of course, in these next 10 as well. So you're going to want to stick around if you're an Ohio State fan watching this. You're going to want to stick around for that episode. There will be some guys to pay attention to in that group, as really there will be in all these groups, because Ohio State's just so involved nationally at this point. But definitely want to stick around for those. Like I said, we'll try and run those Tuesday. But thanks for watching this one. And again, you can check out the rankings on the website, buckeyescoop.com. And we'll see you again on Tuesday with 10 more.